Hey there, it's Pastor Tabitha Purple. We're doing the Let's Talk About section of our videos for the week. And the Let's Talk About section today is going to be Let's Talk About Emotional Well-Being. This week I've had lots of conversations with people, lots of times when I've checked in on people or just checked where they are on the scale of how they're feeling isolated, how they may be feeling nervous or anxious or have anxiety or fear, all of the different colors of emotions. And one of the things I've noticed is that it's so important to have a face-to-face contact when you have an emotional color that's really deep that needs to be shared. Now, face-to-face does not mean physically face-to-face all the time. It can mean through a screen. I've had conversations with people who are on lockdown and who are isolated, but we've been able to connect through Skype or WhatsApp or FaceTime or Zoom or any one of these kind of face-to-face contact apps. And it's amazing to see the difference in the person from the beginning of the conversation to the end of the conversation. And I want to stress how important it is that although we've gotten into the habit over the last few years of really texting, of WhatsApping, of messaging, of ticking like on a box, that at a time when you're not rubbing shoulders with people, when you're not looking people face to face so much, when you are self-isolating, or in some cases, in some countries are on complete lockdown, it becomes really important that we make eye contact with people, that we actually look at someone's face and that we speak to them, and we keep that skill alive of how to communicate, and also that we ensure that there's a safe place for someone else. And so what I've really appreciated in this time is that I've been able to do that for others. And yes, that's part of my work, of course. That's what I get paid to do, so to speak, is to be a safe place for people to express how they're feeling spiritually, emotionally, mentally, how they can actually have that conversation with somebody safely, without judgment, without somebody bashing them over the head how they should feel better or what have you, but just to give them the spiritual support in place, especially if it's quite if you're quite desperate, if you're quite lonely and you haven't talked to anybody. It's wonderful to be able to connect with your local pastor, somebody who may know something about the area, about the shops that are there, about how you can get groceries. There's really a calming, reassuring force. So I think that's really important that we remember that we have to have these face-to-face communications, but face-to-face doesn't mean that we have to be literally in each other's spaces. We can have a moment where you just set up your phone on a little stand or a selfie stick and you talk to somebody, and you laugh and you share a joke, but you will see what a difference that makes to somebody's day. And it's so important that we do that. What I have appreciated personally is that people have also checked in on me. I've had a lot of people come and say, hey, we see all the work that you're putting in. We see that you're raising a family at the same time, and you're being a wife, and you're looking after other people, and you're going and delivering books, and you're shopping for people, and you're doing all of these things. So are you okay? And that question has actually meant quite a lot to me, because when somebody asks me that question in general everyday terms, we often say, yeah, I'm fine. And we don't think about the answer. But I've noticed that people are actually asking the question with the intention to hear the answer. And I think that that is so important. When you ask a question, wait to hear the answer. So I think that if we're doing the Let's Talk About Emotional Color, if we're talking about emotional well-being, it's really important for us to now start thinking strategically. Have I spoken to anyone today? And make it our mission to speak to at least one person a day for a short period of time, just to give that face-to-face eye contact, because you may be the only person that speaks to them. You may be the only person who has that conversation with them. You might be the person who gives them a lift for that day. You may actually find a way to encourage them. And I think that we can do that. If you just called one person per day while you're on lockdown, while you can't leave your house, just speak to one person. Say, listen, I'm just calling to check on you. How are you? Or, call somebody and say, hey, I was thinking about you. How can I help you? Maybe one person is too much, but if you don't live with anyone and you are not seeing people regularly, so you are alone in your house and you're not seeing people regularly at all, you're not having any contact, you're in a high risk group, or you're worried and afraid, so you're self-isolating and you're putting yourself in an isolated position, really important that you do maintain contact with people. And it might be difficult, and maybe you don't know who to call. There are lots of pastors out there who are happy to take these phone calls, who are happy to talk to you. There are pastoral phone call lines that you can call if you don't. There are the Samaritans and others who take these phone calls. So please don't feel alone at this time. Please make sure you're checking in regularly. If you have a friend who you know is suffering with a mental health condition, now it's really important for you to check on that friend. And I think that the more we have these open conversations, the more abundant it will be. And especially if you start with, I'll just call one person in my contact list, I'll just do this randomly. But then maybe you connect to somebody in your contact list in a way you hadn't before. And then you can say, hey, I'm going to call you in 3 days. I'm going to book my phone call with you. In 3 days, I'm going to call you. So maybe then you don't need to call every day, but then you have that direct contact that you're having. So I think when we talk about emotional well-being, mental well-being, and let's talk about it honestly, it's really important that we have these moments where we call someone and speak to them. Call them on the telephone, call them through one of these lovely apps that allow you to speak face to face, and do some personal connecting with people in a real way. Don't worry about your background. Don't worry if your hair's done. Just talk to someone. If you're worried about that, then just pick up the phone and use the thing a telephone was made for. We have smartphones now that do everything else, but we don't use them to make a phone call. Use them to make a phone call. So that's my really, brief moment on Let's Talk. I think it's really important that we check on everyone's mental well-being. Take a list of your phone, check in. I'm notorious. I always text people, I always WhatsApp people, but I love interaction and contact, so I've had to do it myself. So I know it works. I know how important it is, not only to the person on the receiving end of the phone call, but when someone has called to ask me that question, I know how important that has been to me. So make someone's day, give them a call, connect with them, leave a voicemail if they are afraid and don't pick up the phone. Let them know you're a safe space. We can do this. We can definitely connect, talk and check in on each other's mental well-being at a time of high stress internationally. All right, God bless. Have a wonderful evening, wonderful day. See you soon.